Thank you so much for joining us today for the film. I'm going to bring back Wandrille on the screen when he has a moment. I want to also thank so much to Irene Brisson and also to Julio at HSA. What we're going to ask people to do is to put any questions that they want to ask in the Q&A. We've opened the chat so that you can chat about the film. But if you have any questions for Wandrille, please put them in the Q&A. I'm going to start in the meantime with a question that probably meant, although first I would just like to thank him because I think that it's really an amazing film. There have been a lot of films on the Haitian Revolution, but going into the debt in this way and centering Haitian voices, I think is really amazing. So I just want to ask you first, and just a reminder, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. Wandrille, why did you make this film?
Well, thank you very much to everyone for attending, and thank you for having me. I first wanted to apologize very quickly if my connection is a little bit unstable. I hope everybody can listen to me properly. I decided to work on that particular story because I had been working before on, I really wanted to work on a part of the French history that was completely forgotten. And I was kind of interested in Haiti for different reasons. I had read a lot about the culture in Haiti, what the Haitian population was able to produce in terms of movies, in terms of paintings. And it so happened to me that I really wanted to explore or go back to the reasons why, in a way, this country was not very well known for its history, but we always refer to Haiti for the misery, the poverty, the political unrest. And I started looking into this. And then I also came across the series of articles that the New York Times produced and published. I think it was in 2022. We can go back to that. I know that some people and some scholars had something to say about this series of articles, but I thought it was also very interesting to see that there was something to investigate there, and that the story was always a bit more complex than what we were being told. And finally, yes, I really wanted to work on that because by trade, I'm an investigative journalist and documentary filmmaker. And I thought that it would be interesting for me to put this knowledge and this training of doing investigative work within the political realm, the economic realm, and to try and understand a little bit what was happening behind the story that we were being told, taught, or fed.
Thank you very much. I had my audio off. All right, just a reminder, thank you. There's so much good chatter about the film. We're going to be monitoring the Q&A area. So let's see here. Okay, I'm going to start with a question here from my colleague Gazai Berhana, who is from Eritrea, and he asked, what is the status of the reparation at this time?
Well, it's the main question that you should be asking now, I think. And as I was doing this film, I thought it was really important. I'm just going to make a little bit of a digression here, but because the story of Haiti is not so well known in France, it was really important to take some time within this 1 hour documentary film to talk about the history of Saint-Domingue before it became Haiti. And so it took a bit of time to sort of go very quickly through something that is extremely important, which is the Haitian Revolution. And during previous talks that I've had or presentations, people have been asking about why did I rush through the Haitian history so fast? It's so important. And of course, it is really important. But so my point here is that it was really important to make that movie and to talk in a very didactic or pedagogical way about what happened. But it's true that as I was doing the movie, I was thinking, okay, this is just the first installment in a way, because the main question is what's going to happen now that we all know what happened. What is going to happen in France, in Haiti, between these two countries to think, reflect on reparations. And now to address the question more specifically, I think we're living an interesting moment right now. There's been an announcement made by President Macron in France on the 17th of April this year, 200-year anniversary of the death of Haiti, of the ordinance of Charles X. And yeah, so there was this announcement by President Macron and by the Haitian government that there's going to be a co-national or a Franco-Haitian commission that is being put together. It took some time also on the Haitian government, the situation being what it is in Haiti. It was also difficult, I think, to come up with a proper structure of what was going to happen or how it should happen. And it's Gusty Clara Gaillard-Poncher who made me the great honor to accept to be in the film that is going to lead the Haitian endeavor, so to speak. There's also going to be experts in France, and I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. That being said, I have to acknowledge that there's been mixed reactions, especially on the Haitian side, from what I understand, that it's a little bit too little too late in a way. And it's true that I think it needs to be addressed, the fact that people were expecting a little bit more from President Macron on the 17th of April, that they really wanted to hear something a little bit more powerful and symbolic than just the creation of another commission. Yet, it is the first time that France has taken this step, so credit might also be given to this current government to try and address. So yeah, I think it's interesting to see what's going to happen, what's going to come out of these talks on both sides, and then when they come together and discuss what can happen.
Thank you, Wandrille. I want to say that I can't pay attention to all of the things that are coming in the chat and all the wonderful comments, but I saw two things that I want to bring to your attention and everyone else. Professor Fritz Deshommes from the Université d'État d'Haïti, who is also the head of the Haitian side of the Haitian Commission on Restitution. He's here and he said, "Un très bon film, merci." And you also have appreciation from our colleague, former Haitian ambassador, and our colleague Jean Casimir in the Q&A. Perhaps you can see later his appreciation. Okay, I'm going to come over. People have been asking about how to show the film, and I want to emphasize again, we have in the chat, you can arrange it through Brother Films. This did show on TV in France, which is very important in trying to bring this especially to audiences who can help do something about it. So we have that information. Okay, we've done that. I have from Brian Shedden, were there parts of this story that you couldn't include but wish you did?
Yes. Yeah, of course. There's always like the editing process is usually the most painful one, obviously. We gathered a lot of material in France, in the United States, in Canada, but obviously also in Haiti. There's a couple of things that I really wanted to work on more, and specifically that was the role of the Banque Nationale de Haïti, the national bank, which was a pivotal point or pivotal institution late in the 19th century for the payments to be made to France. And I started looking into that institution. I had some very good material from all the interviewees in the film. I also made specific interviews to understand the role, or let's say the interaction of the Banque Nationale de Haïti and some French banking institutions as well. And little by little, I became aware that I only had an hour to speak about all this. And as you see, I tried and focus a little bit more on a systemic approach. Why was it so new, this sort of the installment of this new relationship between a former colonial power and a former colony, and to try and understand a little bit the aftermath for the Haitian society, obviously. But I thought it was interesting also to focus to try and highlight the fact that as Mathilde Ackermann, who's a very young but very promising scholar in France on Haitian studies, point out. I think Malik Gachem also, who's with you guys over at is at the MIT, also points out that it was then sort of replicated throughout the history between France and other former colonies, and I thought that it was, for me, maybe more interesting to shift a little bit the focus on that particular part of the story. And I have to admit that the part on the National Bank of Haiti, its links to banking, to French banking institutions, started becoming extremely technical. And from a storytelling point of view, I think it was a smart choice, although I wish we could have had more time and dwelled into it a bit more.
Excellent. I really, again, I love so many parts of the film. Gusti Clara, everything she said was wonderful. And then Malika Gahem was my classmate a few years behind me at Stanford in the 90s when there were not so many people working on Saint-Domingue.
Wow.
And it's wonderful to see after 3 books where he is and the expertise he has now in the bank. We have so many questions, and I'm going to work through them. I just want to say to remember that Wandrille has learned a lot on this, but he's not also a historian. So some of the historians here can pose some things. I'm just going to say quickly, people have noted, for instance, Chantal Laurent, this didn't just start pushing for reparations, right, in France with the Tabiara law. As I said, this is something that Haitians have pushed for a long time. Okay, and so I am going to pose here a question for Mark Schuler, and then I'm going to take the next one in French. Mark Schuler says, another former president of the Haitian Studies Association. Great film, love the perspective. As I was in Haiti in the period 2003 to 5, it was a great complement to what we are experiencing vis-a-vis the restitution campaign. Folks I was talking with also noted that France wanted to offer up Aristide's ouster as a goodwill gesture to the US, who had cut France out of Iraq's oil reserves. Are you aware of this? Can you comment on the role
Yeah.
of the reparations campaign as part of this entire complex of motivations?
Yeah, so we can start with this. I think it's also something that I wish I could have sort of explained a little bit more, the role of President Aristide in all this, and also my characterization of President Aristide is also a little bit too quick, or I don't know how to say that, but I was also told that I should have been a bit more emphatic on what he had done for the Haitian people and so on. Again, my focus was not President Aristide's deeds in Haiti, but more with regards to what was happening between France and the restitution campaign. I have to say that I got to speak with different people off the record, and I got a pretty clear picture of what happened on that particular night of February 28th, 2004, because the Debré Commission went to Haiti over Christmas 2003, so he was ousted 2 months later. And yeah, so I was I was made aware that it's true that because of what had happened on the Iraq case at the UN, and Dominique de Villepin was the very famously stood up to the US position back then, and against with the weapons of mass destruction and so on. So let's not get too particular here, but so yes, I was told that France was trying to make it up to the US government back then, and that everybody on both parts, both in Washington, D.C. and in Paris, everybody sort of saw this as a sort of making truce kind of situation, and that the US had its own reasons to want to oust President Aristide, and France also had very good reasons because he had been very vocal, because it was the bicentenaire, so the 200-year anniversary of the independence of Haiti back then, and he was very vocal that he wanted this sort of sorted so that the anniversary would be sort of a triumph for him and the campaign. And I think it was very complicated. The French position was debated in Paris. They didn't know how to react. They didn't know whether they should send someone to celebrate in Port-au-Prince the anniversary of the independence. So I think there was a lot going on between these two governments. I mean, the US government and the French government. And yeah, I mean, it was probably something that they came together, or a topic that they decided that they should act together on. Um, I think again a lot should be done or could be done on what happened between the Commission Debré coming to Port-au-Prince and the ousting of President Aristide. Um, and what I heard is it could be a good scenario for a fiction film. It's yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said and uncovered still, I think.
And I'll add, I don't think that you needed to look at Aristide from different perspectives in this film. There are a lot of films that have already done that.
Right,
In my book, Slave Revolt on Screen, I had a chapter where I talked about Haitian filmmakers looking at the legacy of the Haitian Revolution and all of the films that came out after the bicentennial, kind of debating about these speeches by Aristide and more generally. So I think you did perfectly what you needed to do here. I'm
all
going
right.
to come over now to a question here from Jean-Julien Olsen. And I'll just read it in English, but you could also see it in the Q&A if you want. The film did not directly question Boyer's responsibility and his regime in the process. Boyer's regime, they were the principal local beneficiaries of the new modalities of colonialism. And I'll just go down to the bottom of his question. Ne pensez-vous pas que le régime de Boyer préfigure une élite haïtienne à la fois soumise aux empires néocoloniaux et opprime les masses rurales et urbaines afin de bénéficier des miettes du système? And again, this is not your domain. We have other folks
Mm,
on the Zoom,
no,
but please go ahead.
yeah, I can start. I mean, of course, as you said, I'm not a historian. I tried to sort of um, gather a lot of information. But I think Professor Brière is probably among the attendees here, and I had the honor to interview him in Albany, and I think he's not the only one, but he's one of the interviewees that make this case that there was an interest on the Haitian side to sign or to agree to the ordinance of Charles. And I don't think that the argument of the film is to deny this. I think we're trying to show that there were several factors that pushed the Haitian government back then, Boyer, to sign. It's true that something that I also learned about when I was doing my research, and I think is extremely interesting, is what is called in Haiti, so pardon my Creole, but what is called pays en dehors and pays en dedans, which would translate as in the country within and or inside and outside, sort of like building this opposition between the haves and the have-nots, the people in the cities and the people that in the countryside. And a lot of people have told me that this dates back to basically the foundation of the country. And so again, I think there were many reasons. I think the elite in Haiti was really keen to sign this agreement with the French government. Also, the transfer of properties was something very important. The fact that the elite had gotten all the properties from the former colonial houses and colonial colonies, basically, and that they were extremely in a hurry to officialize the fact that they now had the properties and they really didn't want these people back into Haiti so that they would have to give up what they had basically received. So yes, again, I totally agree with the comment that's been made. I think there obviously was a very big role. I think we're trying to address it. Also, it's been a debate among scholars, as you, Alyssa, might well know, and so many people here, that it's a debate that's not really been sort of decided or concluded, that to which extent did the Asian elite really feel that they were threatened? Was it sort of were they really, playing this? Did they really feel threatened? did France really have the power, the military power, to overtake Haiti or to bomb out everything in Port-au-Prince? So yeah, all these questions are very much debated now. I know that, for example, Gusty Clara Gaillard, who is in the film, is not always on the same page as Jean-Marie Théodat, who's also in the film. And, so this is a heated debate. I think it's very interesting. I'm trying to present all these factors, yet I don't have a final answer to that.
Thank you. And I'll just add, right, among the people who are here in the audience that we can't see is Professor Alex Dupuis, who's also written on this.
Right.
So I refer people to his work also. We have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to group them. One is just comments, people who are skeptical about the gesture that Macron is making. Right, Chantal Laurent said, encore une commission de Macron qui ne va servir à rien. Another comment here, let's see, was from Silas Camidigio. President Macron has made many statements about the French colonial past. Granted, he is sincere, je dis peut-être, but is that performative only, or is there something substantial? Also, Marco Salomon said France is doing precisely the same thing in West Africa today. Is there a difference between the money extorted from Haiti and the countries in West Africa? So let's just start there. At a time when France might be doing the same things, do you think something will come out of this? Which still, I have to note, after 200 years, it's the first time that France acknowledged, other than Hollande, which is another topic and you address well, but sorry, go ahead.
So what I'm thinking is basically that I think for now it's a symbolic gesture, and that's why I really insisted that we keep Malik Gashem in the film, or that I really wanted to have him on the record, interviewed in the film. I think that one of the key points that he makes is that you cannot talk about the decolonization without talking about money. And I think the problem now that we have with this commission is that, and it's also the words of former Prime Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault, whose work on this part, like slavery and the colonial history of France, has to be pointed out. Like he's doing a great job, and he says that. I mean, the question is, do you recognize symbolically what you did, or if you don't speak about the money? And I think Malik Gashem makes a great point saying it has to be about the money. You cannot address this question today and ignore the financial part. That being said, I don't think anyone really thinks that we should basically just sign a blank check to Haiti. Everybody's aware of the difficulty that the country is going through right now. And I don't think anyone really makes the case that we should just give away money and then whatever happens, happens. And I think the interesting debate that is going to be seen, or that we're going to witness now, is how do you work or make it possible for these two countries to work together? And it's not a sort of top-down situation where you have a former colonial power, a developed country, rich countries such as France, deciding that they're going to finance this project and that project, and Haiti or the Haitian people or the Haitian government doesn't have any say as regards to where the money should go. So I think it's more about working together, and I hope that the work that the commissions are going to come up with is going to provide answers to that. Also, it has to be acknowledged that although it's been 200 years and it's long due, obviously, it's still sort of the first time that this process is happening. So we have to be hopeful. It's not my place now to judge whether it's gonna go through, or if Macron is just sort of making a big sort of fuss about it. I'll just finish with something that was said to me by Pierre-Yves Bocquet, who's in the film, and he works with a foundation for the memory of slavery, which is an interesting institution because they work backstage and they try to persuade very big institutions that had a very important role in this in maintaining the slavery system back then. He's trying to or they're trying to persuade these institutions to try and work on this colonial past, and what should you do today. And he told me right after the announcement of the Élysée, of the French presidential palace, he told me, look, we don't know where it's going to go, but we have to acknowledge that it's opening the door to something. So now it's also our responsibility to try and push through and crank open that door and see where we can go. But at least he opened, slightly the door for something to happen. So some
Thank
people
you.
are hopeful, some people are critical.
And it's hard, right? For a scholar like me of French colonialism, it's hard not to be cynical, but it is important.
Of
And it
course.
wasn't just something off script, which then Francois Hollande backtracks, right, when he goes to Haiti and he says it's a moral debt, which is kind of insulting. There are so many questions. One thing I want to address, people are asking about seeing it. Where can they see it? Rodney Jean-Louis said, rather than focusing on selling the film, would it not be more strategic to raise funds or secure sponsorship to stream it widely? And I just wanted to answer here as a scholar of film, people might not understand how complicated film distribution is. And Wandrille had to pay money to make the film. So that's one reason we would like people to help pay him back so that he can make more films rather than just kind of bootlegging it and streaming it elsewhere. Yes, it's great. He got it on France 2, which is amazing. And you have all of these people who
Yeah.
are able to see the film that way. Getting it on somewhere like Netflix is something that a lot of Haitians have not been able to have their film on Netflix. Ricard Senecal has some that are on Amazon Prime, but it's very complicated. So I think what we can do now is the more screenings that we're able to arrange of this, again, especially in France, that helps put the pressure on people who know nothing at all about
Mhm.
this, and to push that forward. Yes, that is true, but I don't know if it's authorized. So I don't know if that's something that Vondry would like people to watch that way. I want to run through just a few questions that are about the film. So Christina Freed said, how do you see, and I'm going to group a few, how do you see your film and the arts more generally as being part of the solution in getting restitution for Haiti? Let's see. Nathan Dees, who's part of our Combi in the film group in HSA, do you have a sense of how the film was received in France among educational institutions, cultural institutions, and or viewers? Um, and let's just start there. Then I'll ask two more that are about the film. So the reception of it, and what do you see as your role?
Mm. Um, I think the film has been pretty well received. It's true that the people that have been more vocal about what they felt about the movie or the film were people from the Haitian diaspora, who obviously were very vocal about the fact that they really enjoyed the fact that they could see this on screen, and that the quality of the people that were talking in the film. So I was really pleased with that. I have to say that talking about reception is something that I've heard a lot when I started researching that film. And people were asking me if I thought it was really necessary for France to really look into its past. And we have this debate in France that, and I'm not really aware how it's going on in other countries. Well, I do know what's happening now in the US with regards to its ties to slavery. So yeah, you could actually understand that some people in France are raising the question, do we need to apologize? Do we need to go back to that particular moment in history? Is it really necessary for us? And I think, so there is this question. Some people are more skeptical than others, and I think it has to be addressed. I think people come up with that question, and it's important not to dismiss it, although I do feel very strongly about it. Yet I think the Prime Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault really addresses it, and he says that even on a very egocentric French perspective, what kind of society do you want? What kind of ideal as of the French Republic, how it works and our values? What do you want to uh, in which country, in which set of values do you want to live moving forward? And I think a country that feels strong about its own values needs to be able to look at its past and needs to address the darkest areas of its own past. So again, about this skepticism, I think I've heard it, and I'm sure that people have had it. And I think my role there is to know that it exists, to be able to hear it as well, and to try and respond it the best way I can. And I think the film, in that sense, also can help with this because, again, I'm not taking sides. I have my personal opinions, obviously, but as a filmmaker, I really wanted to present a case that I thought was sort of in or unattackable. That you had all the main experts were there, and I had talked to a lot of other people before, and I came with a strong argument, and I think the best argument for why we should look into this past is made by the people in the film.
Great. What I'm going to ask you two more questions about the filmmaking process before we go back to the question of reparations. So my student, Leslie Ojeda, I have some of my undergrads here, asked, what are some hardships that you faced with this film? And then Amsis Api said, congratulations on this amazing project. I'd like to know how long it took you to make the film.
I'll start with the latter. It wasn't actually so long, especially because I got the agreement or the green light from France Télévisions, which is the national public television in France, pretty early on. Pretty early on, I presented them with a written project, and they were really interested, and they agreed to it within 3 or 4 months after presenting it, which is quite fast. And then, of course, I had started research before. Then I had to talk to a lot of different people, a lot of reading. So I think one of the difficult things that I was facing is that there's a lot of archives or documents that can be sort of discovered or read or seen in France, but they're in different parts. It has to be noted also, something that really shocked me was that the main documents that explain what happened are not now in Haiti, but they're in France. I think the Acte d'Indépendance, the Independent Act of Haiti, is in a museum in the UK. I can't remember now the name of this museum, but I think it also shows very symbolically that a country such as Haiti has been sort of deprived from its own past, because all the archives that you can have access to are in funds in France. So and then obviously I cannot not mention the fact that it was really hard to go to Haiti to film. I worked with an extremely talented journalist who was more than a journalist, because he was providing for our security and for everything. And his name is André, and I think he was also in the attendance before. So I want to thank him very deeply if he's still there. But it was a difficult thing. I had worked before in difficult environments, but it has to be noted that we didn't know that there were people being kidnapped on the airport road coming from the airport into the city of Port-au-Prince a couple of weeks before we went there with my cameraman. So it was a very difficult thing to do, and we wanted to make sure that we had enough security and that we were not putting ourselves in harm's way. That being said, to talk a little bit more about filmmaking, we did shoot a couple of interviews in Port-au-Prince, but then we managed to take a flight. So the airport was still working back then, and we managed to take a flight and go to
Cap Haitien, or
thank you very much. To film. So we had access to a lot of different people there. We could film the habitation, so the former houses and colonial houses and farms. And so it was actually possible to film, but it did require a lot of organizing. And again, André was extremely important for me and to feel safe to be able to film there. And the previous question was about filmmaking, and I'm sorry, I
It's just you, I think you
forgot.
answered both about hardships.
All right, cool.
So,
All right.
yes, and
Yeah,
I want to note that a scholar like me, I want films to be made also by Haitians about their own history. But as you noted, it's extremely hard. So I saw that you also, in your credits, thanked Gilbert Mirambeau, who himself, he had members of his equipe who were kidnapped while they were making the film Kidnapping. So it's
yeah.
very hard, and I appreciate you were able to go there. Okay, I'm going to switch over to the question of accountability. And so I have one question here from Dasha Chapman, who's part of our film Combi. A very powerful moment in the film is when we see the archival evidence of former plantation owners' claims to their lost property. We often hear about the indemnity in the abstract. Have these families been called to account for their legacies of extraction, or are they part of the conversation? And then I have one other question, a nice big question that Gabrielle Pascal has been waiting for us to answer, which is very important. What do you think can be done now for Haiti to rebuild itself? Is it just reparations or systematic change? So that question is about reparations in the particular, the families, and then how you might think that
Yeah.
now reparations might be organized.
So yeah, I was also very shocked, and as a filmmaker, I was trying to make it. I didn't want to emphasize it too much, but I thought that the moment was extremely powerful when we discovered this piece of evidence. And it's true that I had been talking to people, and Gusty Clara Gaillard was telling me that I mean it's hard to find that kind of evidence because obviously everybody denied the fact that people had been sort of paid back for the loss of properties of enslaved people, obviously. So because it was said that it was not possible to be paid back for the enslaved people that you had sort of lost as property. But evidence is clear that people got money for the human beings that they owned back then, which is extremely shocking. And yeah, then the question of the responsibility now of the heirs of these families is, I think, is more of a philosophical debate, and I don't know if I have all the tools to have a proper opinion. What I could say, and then everybody can have their own opinion, is that they've been contacted. Some of them have been contacted by the New York Times investigators, and some spoke very candidly that they were discovering that the role of their families back then, and trying to sort of wondering what they can do. I also have to say that I think the conversation so I've started documenting what's happening in the UK, and I think the conversation is a bit more interesting in the UK, where some families have come forward, have redacted or have written letters of apologies, have proposed amounts of money from their own. Some of them are not extremely rich, but still, like they've benefited from their position in society because of what their ancestors have done. So obviously these families have come forward and have gone to Grenada, for example. I'm thinking of the Trevelyan family. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with them. Laura Trevelyan used to be a famous anchor for the BBC. She was stationed in the US actually for a very long time. And so together with her family, they went to Grenada to ask for forgiveness, and they came up with a figure. Then the question that is extremely hard to ask is which which amount should they propose? Because in a way, how can you quantify? And maybe some people will actually have the argument that if you start quantifying what's been done through slavery and through the debt in Haiti, then maybe it's also the your should you quantify a crime against humanity, for example? I think it's a very interesting philosophical question. So yeah, I would just sort of say here that some very interesting things need to be seen and noted and singled out in the UK. And it's true that the debate in France is not as advanced, I have to say. Then what to do now? If France decided to pay back Haiti for what happened, will it solve everything? Honestly, I don't think I'm qualified enough to answer that question. I think it requires a lot of scholars and, it's political studies, geopolitical studies, international relations, and obviously the amount of money. And again, we go back to how you quantify this. Like, and is any amount of money uh, sufficient or enough to say that France now can sort of wash their own hands and, like, we did what we had to do and we just paid back, and now it's because how do you quantify the lack in infrastructure, the lack in development, the lack in access to higher education? I mean, this is extremely hard to quantify. So what needs to be done? I think probably more than just preparations. But then also you have to face the fact that the attention of the international audience is waning in a way. And how many times do you hear about what's happening in Haiti in the conversation, global conversation, in newspapers? So yeah, maybe just starting also with a bigger focus on what's happening there could also help to try to make it more obvious that we need to intervene, or intervene as in help as we could. So yeah, I don't think reparation is enough, but I think it's a good start.
Okay, thank you, Wandrille. What I'm going to say is Wandrille. Wandrille doesn't have to answer this question for us. The film exposes some of these issues, brings it to a wider audience, and in fact, the theme of our conference is going to be restitution and reparation, but there's so many people working on this. So one of the things that I just put in the chat is just a link from Fitz des Hommes, who's leading the Haitian side of the commission. And then you can see there, or to Google, some of the things that the Haitian Commission is looking for. I've also talked about this with Brian Concanon from the Institute for Haiti Justice, who collaborated with the late Mario Joseph. And he said one of the things is, and it's something that a lot of people have recognized, until there's political stability in Haiti, who do you give the money back to? So one of the things that we need to focus on is continuing to fight for Haitians to have real sovereignty, for leaders not to be imposed by outside who know that if they say the wrong thing, a limo is going to come from the US Embassy or for the French Embassy and whisk them away for saying the wrong thing. And until that happens, returning all of the money is not necessarily the best way to get stability in Haiti. But this is a conversation that will continue. We had so many wonderful questions from the audience. We didn't get to all of them. I'm just going to try in a minute to run through. Kerith Joseph asked a question about history, which I think people should be able to see. So other people might be able to talk about that. iPhone asked another history question. Sylvie Conde, Jeff Justin, Abigail Geyer asked about the effects of this on our media. Ernst Ducena asked about resources. And so I'll just say we can write crowd do some of this. You might consider reaching out to people. Sarah Gray brought up the British. My student Jaden Perez wanted to know more about what you learned. Claudine Michel wanted to see if you wanted to weigh in on Alex Dupuy's statement. And then a lot of people asked what you plan to do in the future. So that would be great or investigating recent Haitian governments. My colleague France Luz Benson would like to know if you've submitted the film to any festivals, if there are any festival screenings coming up that we can support. So if you want to, while we close things out, you can answer about the festivals or your next project in the chat. I am going to be going back now to our former president, Cécile Assilien, who will thank everyone and tell you about the film we're showing next week.
Okay. Merci tout le monde. Thank you very much. Special thanks to Wandrille Lanos and Dr. Alyssa Sepinwall. And we also want to thank Professor Gusti Clara Gaia Pouchet, who's a historian, and we saw her in the film. She's a leading figure on the debt, and she was able to connect us to the film director. We thank the HSA staff, consultants, and volunteer board members who are working behind the scene to make this happen. We especially thank Julio Perez Centeno, Irene Brisson, and Dasha Chapman. We also want to thank the members of the Brasserie des Films Combit who do all the work to make this happen. Thank you to Alessandra Benedicti Karken, Alyssa Sepinwall, Félix Jean-Louis, Jacques Constant, Jaira Placide, and Tatiana Bacchus. We want to invite you to our next screening, which will be The Heroes of the Massacre River, a 2025 film by Haitian director Samuel Dameus. The film depicts the heroic efforts of Haitian citizens to build a canal along the Haiti-Dominican River. It will be shown next Friday, October 10th at 3 p.m. We will also have a Q&A with the film director. Please register on our website. We also want to encourage people to support our Haitian Studies Association in any ways that you can, whether to volunteer or to donation, because these films do not just happen. We have to pay to get rights to show the films, and that's important. We want to continue to have these programs. So, merci en pile. Thank you very much. Aïe bobo tout le monde. Okay. Thank you.